I'm Kishor Maharjan. I'm basically a former banker, now turned into an entrepreneur.
I'm Shreyans Karki, a big sports enthusiast, also a former national tennis champion.
Sports diplomacy has always been the prevailing in so many countries. It's widely practiced. Like in 25, 30 years, 40 years back, we used to hear about the ping pong diplomacy that right China used to practice,
Yes.
and China was so good in table tennis that so they had this ping pong diplomacy where they used to call in players from all over the world to play in China, and they used to send out the Chinese players all over the world to play table tennis. So they used to call it ping pong diplomacy. So in the same manner now, I think in football is happening. Countries sending out their players to participate in tournaments in other countries, and it's happening more in cricket now. Countries sending their cricket teams to play in other countries. So I think sports diplomacy is there, but to what extent financial exploitation or benefits have been reaped or have been generated from this, I really don't know. But then it's in practice, and it's basically more or less, I think, used as a kind of bragging tool for a lot of governments. They're saying, hey, we are the best in table tennis, we are the best in badminton, like in Indonesia, we're the best in football, like Brazil used to do it, right? So it's more like a kind of like a showpiece for respective governments. It, of course, indirectly it helps boost the sport and generates sporting activities in smaller countries. Like if we had a team coming to play in Nepal, let's say a football team coming from Germany or Brazil or whatever, I mean, it's a big boost to our Nepalese players, and that kind of will kindle footballing spirit in a lot of young players. So I think this sports diplomacy has been going on since many years, and then will or should continue.
In the case of Nepal particularly, I believe even TU ground was actually made as a neutral ground for India and Pakistan matches to be held, right? So now similarly, I think Fapla cricket ground, they're targeting about 50,000 odd capacity ground. And also I think the long-term vision there is India and Pakistan will always need a neutral venue. So I think that is one opportunity there. And apart from that, when you're representing your nation, it's always the best way to put your nation forward across the globe, right? Whether it's Olympics, whether it's football. Just another example, when it comes to Nepal Super League, we had Roberto Carlos come in for the season, and he was so happy to learn that everybody knows him in Nepal. And similarly, when he shared his stories about his younger days and how difficult it was growing up in Brazil, he could very much relate to how Nepal was. So I think sports diplomacy plays a huge role in amongst the neighbors. I think because especially with cricket, we can build friendly relations within the SAARC countries, because most of the SAARC countries are doing very well in cricket. The huge potential of course, being a neutral ground for India and Pakistan is there. And like you rightly said, Dai, it's a very old practice. It's been going on since the ping pong days, and it will continue to serve as a way to build better bridges between nations.
Yes. Private sector has now slowly started getting involved in sporting activities, whether it be football or cricket or volleyball. But besides that, also private sector has been like sponsoring other tournaments, like even whether it's martial arts or whether it's athletics or marathon. So that's very encouraging. But and more or less these individual events like boxing or marathon, athletics or swimming, there's not much of a financial benefit for the sponsoring institution, right? Other than in sporting activity which are run under certain leagues like football or cricket or volleyball, right? And then to encourage more, the government has to do more. See, the government has to give more incentive. So in foreign countries, in UK, in US, in India, in Japan, what they do is they give tax breaks.
Right.
See, that's a powerful tool. Sponsoring so much amount of money from your balance sheet. All right. Let's say you're making a profit of, let's say, 100 million. So you are sponsoring, you are spending, like, let's say, out of 100 million, 10 million on certain sporting activities. So that 10 million becomes tax deductible. So you don't have to pay tax on 10 million. So you pay tax 100 million minus 10 million, 19. So you pay tax only on 19 million.
Right.
All right. Then again, there are other ways of incentivizing, like tax breaks. Suppose you have to pay a tax of, let's say, 10 million rupees. But you have already sponsored around 10 million rupees to certain sporting activities. So 10 million, so you get tax break. Okay, you can get 5 million rupee tax break. So out of 20 million tax which you have to pay, so you get a break of 5 million. So you just pay 15 million, right? Then there are also other methods, ways of government giving incentive, like, okay, private companies, private corporate houses, okay, you can build your stadium.
Right.
Yeah. The government can give tax breaks, right? Or incentives, or allow the profit, that amount that's spent on sporting activities to deduct it, and they pay tax only on the rest of the amount. And also there's another system called accelerated depreciation, right? So accelerated depreciation means like, normally, like, stadiums have life of like 35, 40 years, which means the annual depreciation rate will be about 5%, 6%, right? But then here, as special incentive, you are given facility of accelerated depreciation, which means you can depreciate your investment in building this sporting facility or this stadium at the rate of 20% for the first year, 15% for the second year, 12% for the third year, 10% for the fourth year. So, which means when you are given this facility of accelerated depreciation, so suppose you have invested 100 million on building this sporting facility.
Right.
So when you are given the accelerated depreciation facility, so which means if it's 20%, then out of 100 million you have spent, so 20 million will be depreciated in year one. Means you don't have to pay 20 million rupees tax on your total overall income, on a group income, you see. Right. So these are the various incentives that are given by foreign governments to their respective business houses who are sponsoring sporting activities. So if Nepal can also come up with that kind of package, right? Tax breaks, tax holidays, accelerated depreciation for building sporting facilities or even stadium, then all the business houses will get up to left, right, center to get involved in sponsoring sporting activities.
That's right. Yeah. I think about 7-8 years ago, the policy on CSR was passed, and I think 1% of your net revenue needs to be spent on CSR for most business houses. However, we learned when we started NSL that sports does not come under that.
Yes, sports not in that.
And after that, we also, got a couple of sports bodies to align. We got ANFA to attest it, and we sent a report to the Prime Minister's office. This is about 4 years ago, saying that the benefit, if you include sports, could be huge on sports because we have a mass exodus of sports stars leaving the country. We have so many other problems. So why not that 1% be utilized? But we did not hear much about that. Very recently, when we had visited the current sports minister, I believe we are very close to letting sports also be a part of that 1% CSR. So I think that will be a big shift because 1% of all business revenues, and let's say even if 10% of that comes into sports, I think it'll be a big shift and it'll be a big incentive for private houses to invest in sports infrastructure, franchise leagues, or whatever it may be. But definitely, I think even for business houses, sometimes in terms of CSR, they get better mileage in sports than some of the other activities.
Yeah.
Right?
But that 1% is too small an amount. It's not large. Let's say we're talking about 1% of profit. Right. So if a company which is having a turnover of 1 billion rupees, let's say, will have a profit of maximum probably 50 million, 50 million rupees max, right? And 1% of that is 400, 500,000 rupees. So a company making a turnover of 1 billion has a CSR budget of 500,000 rupees, 500,000 rupees, all right? And out of the 500,000 rupees, now he'll have like hundreds of institutions coming for sponsoring their respective, whatever activities.
Right.
Local sporting clubs, some local jatra, right, for festivals, and some like health camps, some hospital work, some blah blah blah. So even a company which makes a turnover of 1 billion may not be able to give even more than 100,000 rupees to sporting activities. And in sporting activity, he will be approached by football, by volleyball, by cricket. So he has to, to maintain a relationship, he has to again divide that 100,000 rupees among so many other associations, so many tournaments, so many clubs. So that way, I think that 1% CSR amount is not enough for developing sporting activity in the country. We have to go for these tax breaks, tax incentives, and this accelerated depreciation system where if I want to build a, let's say, being a squash person, if I want to build a squash court, the land and the building, it will cost me minimum 5 crore rupees to build 2 courts. Now, if I'm allowed to
deducted on the taxes.
Yeah, on the taxes, or if my company is allowed to build it, and if I'm given accelerated depreciation facility, right? So which means I get to deduct 20% of my expenditure first year. Why not? So 5 crore then I get a benefit of 1 crore tax break. So I do it. Why not? So, but because it gives my company a big mileage. Right. And then I'm doing something which I love. So I'm supporting the sporting enterprise, sporting activity, something I love, and I'm also making some name out of it, and also giving a large benefit to the society, right? So I think if you move in that manner, then it's going to make some sense. So I think that 1% CSR portion will
small effect,
very very small, very small.
We had also discussed with the government about naming rights. So, for example, Dashrath Stadium. It's the only decent stadium we have in the country, and it's still in a dilapidated state. So, whether if you were to give it to one of the business houses, say you do the entire renovation, you name it after your foundation or whatever, and you maintain and also you raise revenue and pay to the government, there'd be plenty of people coming up front for these kind of projects. But somehow these kind of things really don't seem to pick up pace here. But we had also proposed a very similar proposal for the Dashrath Stadium itself.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we have the society and the large, and then even the media sector, they seem to have vested interest. And if there is certain partnership, collaboration work between government body and a private body, then those who are not benefiting from it, they tend to go after it and say there's a very illegal kind of collaboration. So I mean, look at in India, GMR is building airports in so many places, and they are making benefit, and they have made it really good. Look at the kind of airports they are building in India, right? Out here in Nepal, I think one private party builds certain facilities in our international airport, and then the whole media has been after this private party saying, there's something under table, illegal deal, blah, blah, blah. And then there's so many like collaborative activities that's taking place between private party and government party. And then the media goes out to private party, you know.
So I think the larger part of the problem actually is how private industries are looked at in the whole place. That's a bigger challenge, not just in sports, but
so
overall.
That's very sad. So unless this whole, the outlook, the way we think, the outlook, if it can be changed, unless we can change it, it's not going to be that easy.
Right.
And for that, the government has to step in. The government has to make it very transparent, and then work proactively with private parties to make these ventures happen, make these ventures have a positive kind of appeal amongst the masses.
Right, absolutely. Firstly, when I think of sports, I think it all starts at a very young age. So it's more of an outlook where parents prioritize education over sports. Sports is probably looked at something you might want to do in the free time. So I think the major shift is not just government, it's just human perspective, where you really prioritize sports, and the change goes in from there. When it comes to other stakeholders, of course, you've got the government. Recently we had a short meeting with the sports minister, and he was very receptive, and he said, just the budget of Mulpani cricket ground is 7 arba, whereas the budget for sports is 5 arba. So without the private sector, he cannot do much, right? So definitely we're a poor developing economy, but I still think sports needs to be prioritized a little bit more. It's not giving a large portion of the budget, but definitely the government needs to address this. Similarly, the thing we just discussed, how private institutions are looked at. If you change that and all the private institutions start looking at sports as a good avenue to spend, where you also get a certain amount of mileage and returns, then I think the shift is huge. The problem is that, like you said, you invested X amount in cricket, in EPL over the years. But today, where do we stand? You have a brand, but are we playing any cricket? I get very similar questions from all our franchises. We are spending X amount of money on a yearly basis. But what are we doing? Is the government going to give this some recognition? So many factors. So I think when it comes to all the stakeholder of sports, I would say it first needs to come right from the school, child and parenting. It starts at that level. Then of course the other stakeholders, we also have a very bureaucratic system with the ministry and the Rashtriya Khelkut Parishad, so there's too much conflict within there itself. I somehow think they're kind of unifying that now. I think the biggest challenge is the mental shift, where sports should be looked equally or your next priority after education, and not something you just do in free time or do not even do at all. So the big shift is there. Then of course, the majority of the government and the private institution challenges we've spoken about, and we know we'd be requesting for similar things as well.
Yeah, that's true. And then, I think now I hear the government is planning to include sports as one of the subjects in school level now.
Right.
And that's very important. So if at school level, sports is made one of the subjects, whether it's athletics or football or volleyball or whatever, badminton or table tennis, and if a certain numbering is done there, scores are given to pass from one class to the next class, then I think students would be really interested to get involved in sporting activities, number one. And then of course their expertise also will grow. But right now, there are two things. There are like young people getting involved in sporting activities, whether it be football or cricket or volleyball, whatever. But then they keep on playing until the age of 20, 21, maybe 22. And then suddenly, what next? Where's the future, right? As you earlier pointed out, I mean, look at the footballers. I mean, last 4-5 years, I think more than 50-60 senior footballers, they left the country.
Yes.
That's a big loss to the country. And then ANFA is scrambling to bring in more players, and then more players come in, and then after a couple of years playing in National League, they disappear.
I was told at one point of time, very interestingly, that if we pick the top 11 Nepalese players living in Australia currently and the national team, there's a high chance that that team might win because we had more stars there.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that was the scenario a couple of years ago.
True. And we are having difficulty running our national league.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And in Australia, they have a national league of Nepalese football teams out there.
Yes.
See, you can see. I mean, it's quite a hypocrisy. I mean, this whole situation, and I think it's the same in all of the games, except for cricket. Cricket is doing good, but then other sporting activities, no. So we have a long way to go there, and then I think the government has to make these partnership deals with private people acceptable to the general public. They have to change the outlook, overall outlook. That's in the society and among the media also, right? And they should not always, like look at the society. The media should not look at these government-private sector partnerships as something under the table deal or something like that.
Right.
So it should be more transparent. I'm sure we have a lot of potential, and I hope the present government is doing enough homework to make sure that sporting activity will be one such activity. And then also in sports, like in other areas, like if you're working in some government offices, so after you retire at the age of 58 or 60, then you get pension, you get gratuity, you get so many blah blah, right? So people naturally opt for going for regular 10 to 5 job than pursuing with the sporting activities. So that's why everybody drops out after 22, 23, 24 years old. Because there are people who continue playing beyond the age of 28, 30, like in football. And then after, when they reach age of like 32, 34, 35, what next? Nothing. They have nothing. So a few of them would get a job of a coach or something like that.
Right.
But then most of them, they have nothing else to do. So the future is gone, ruined. So that's why, as I said earlier, it's very important for the government to give proper kind of incentive to organizations, to institutions to sponsor sporting activities and to consider such expenses as tax deductible expenditure. So all these people who devote their time for sporting activities, they can keep on doing until they reach the age of like 30, 35. I mean, look at so many well-known players abroad like Messi, like Ronaldo. They are 38, 39, 40, 40. They are still continue to play. They are still performing. And there's a lot of future for them. And there are thousands of players like them all over the world. But in Nepal, no. I mean, I don't know. Players who are playing here in 80s and 90s, they have all disappeared, right? Nowhere to be seen. So which means, I think, if the private sector and the government work together, then there's a lot of scope, a lot of future for all levels of players, whether it's be football or cricket or whether it's any other individual sports like athletics, swimming, martial arts, right? So there is a lot of potential, but I don't know. I just sincerely wish that the present government would do something about it, and that way it will be a winning situation. I mean, I think sports brings a big round of applause for any nation.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like football does for Brazil, cricket for India, Australia, South Africa, right? So sports can create quite a big brand name for any country. So I think Nepal has a potential of creating a good brand name in the sporting map of the world through promotion of sporting activities out here. And for that, I hope the present government has taken this into consideration, and they have now decided to, of course, include now sports as part of the subject in school at school level. So if this thing can really take off, then it's going to bring a lot of good things for this country.
So as all the stakeholders in the room, as the question was there, I think another big problem that Nepal has always had is too much politics in sports. When it comes to associations, I'm not sure about the squash association there, but anywhere where there's a decent size of budget, there were already people with political backing party alignments being placed into the system, which created more politics than sports there. So I think if that is also addressed, I'm sure in squash, it's passionate people like you leading the show. I was also somehow involved in the tennis association, and it's been a history of passionate people just trying to bring about change. But when it comes to the bigger sports, then you suddenly hear Phalano party go is the, which also creates a huge bureaucratic. And then if I were to give an example of ANFA, the AIFF, the Indian Federation, has about 25 votes. Here we've got about 84 votes. Now with a very small budget, if you want to do development in all the jillas, I don't think whether it's possible. But probably if you pick one jilla in every pradesh, then you could actually make something impactful rather than just sending out a couple of footballs to each jilla and keeping them happy. So I think the entire political involvement with people with very little sports know-how or information, I think that's been a huge part of the problem also in some of the sports.
Like political parties, they are using like sports federations, associations as kind of a recruiting ground for their party cadres.
Exactly.
Right? So from what I hear, like ANFA, for example, spends more money in salary distribution to its huge number of officials that are all over the country, right? There are like 75 football associations, district associations, and each of these football district associations have like 10, 15 officials each. And then you paying salary to all of them. So that's a humongous amount of money, and so they have very little left for, for the players, for promotion of the sports itself. And in case of certain associations like cricket, fine, in ICC, ACC sends in money, so they are relatively better placed, right? But then any other association, you can see, you have to beg for it. Like in my case, in squash association, they used to put, set aside a budget of 5 lakh rupees per year, which we never took, which we don't want your money. So that's how, how can they expect, and then during international games like Asian Games or South Asian Games, they expect us to win gold, right? You can't win gold. They are so far from the reality. I think the sporting authority, they should know where we stand in each and every sporting activity we are getting engaged in. Like be it football, be it volleyball, be it martial arts, be it athletics, or be it swimming. And they should know how we can move ahead, how we can develop each of these sporting categories. No, they don't have any idea. No idea. And any association which has a politically connected, let's say, president or general secretary, will have access to funds. Then we'll have access to traveling abroad with, a large entourage of sporting officials going to China or to Korea or Japan or whatever for trips. And they spend lots of money in the foreign junkets than on development of sporting activities. So I think there has to be a break somewhere. And I'm glad that the present government right now is putting a break on all these foreign travels. So I hope that they can continue like this until we can then reach another level, another height.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. So
I think we all have our fingers crossed.
Well, not exactly, I would say, because the government expects the respective associations to do their own, legwork. Like I know in football, they have this ANFA Academy where a few selected players from districts, right? They are brought in here and trained here. So that would be about hardly 50-60 number. But at district level, they don't sponsor anything as such. So I think it's the parents and the teachers, sports teachers in schools who identify potential people, potential young students, and then they send them to local district associations where they are, trained with no what you call stipend, no allowances for no extra diet, nothing, and you can imagine the kind of diet that these young kids from far-flung districts of Nepal, the kind of diet they probably have at home.
Right.
So that's a far cry from what any young place should be having, right? Not enough protein, not enough vitamins, right? And so even from these, then somehow they have some kind of a quota system. So the ANFA then asks these district associations to recommend 2 or 3 names from the respective districts. So then they're named, and then these young kids are brought to ANFA, and then they're put in the hostel and then trained there. That's it.
Right.
But in case of any other association, it's not there. I don't know about cricket. District cricket associations are not given budget to, fund activities of kind of identify and training young cricket playing kids. No. I mean, fortunately, there are so many kids who are interested to play cricket that they would love to go out and play on the streets also. No?
Right.
Put up 3 sticks and then go batting and bowling, right? So that's how they have young people have been coming up and playing cricket. But the government has not done much. And in case of squash now, in tennis, I know, in tennis, because it's a more glamorous game compared to squash, so the parents, they themselves, they take their kids to the tennis court out here, and they wait out in the tennis court until the kids have their training thing done with, and then they drive them back home. And those who are promising good players, the parents themselves take them abroad for participating in tournaments, whether it's in India, or it's in Thailand, or Singapore, right? So that's how the parents are directly supporting their kids. And the government or the tennis association in this case has not been able to do much in terms of financial support to these kids. Again, I think it's all the individual players themselves who have taken keen interest in this game and then develop their skill on their own, been participating in their own respective domestic, like district tournaments, and then slowly been kind of getting identified by national level coaches or assistant coaches, and then brought to play in the national arena. As of now, fortunately, I think the players who are associated with APF, Armed Police Force, Nepal Army, and Nepal Police, they're doing quite good, right? And because they're getting sponsored, they have been given certain positions in their, like some are getting Havaldar, some are getting corporal, some are, some low-level ranks. And just recently, one of the players, I think, Ashif Sheikh or someone got promoted to junior Havaldar or something, Havaldar position, right? And well, he's been given stipend, so at least he has his way of subsistence, so he can make something out of it. So this is how our players are surviving. So all the good players that we have in football or cricket or volleyball, they are with one of the departments, one of these three departments. So besides that, I think government directly has not been able to give any kind of support to any of the players.
Absolutely agree. I think the grassroots programs and academies has been the biggest challenge for Nepal in terms of sports. Like you rightly pointed out, ANFA runs a small academy. CAN, like you said, has the districts. Tennis being a slightly different sport, the parents are involved. But why academies are important is it's not investment for today, it's investment for 15 years later. If you don't have kids starting young, they're not going to get very far. We have reached a time where in sports, at 18, 19, you are peaking. So if the initial years, you're not getting the right kind of training, the right kind of diet, then for Nepal to grow in terms of rankings in any sport is a far-fetched thought. And you also pointed out very rightly that small countries with smaller population, maybe more budget, but smaller population, they're still doing much better in sports like even football, cricket, or any other sport.
And look at Iceland.
So, exactly. So that's a clear example that if you have your grassroots and training programs right, then that's the only way for the national team to slowly because you train them today for 10 years later.
Yeah.
And I absolutely agree with the departmental connection and sports in Nepal. Even Samba, for that matter, is still with the Nepal police.
Yeah.
Majority of our top players, even in a sport like tennis, the armed police force has been hosting tournaments. The Nepal army has been hosting tournaments. Because it's not just lack of, if you have the youth academies, but then don't have enough competition, then they don't have enough practice, enough game time. So the departments have actually done a very good job. Majority of our superstars in most of the sports comes from the department. But if the government now sets aside a budget and every association has to, say, exhaust at least 30 to 35% of that budget on the youth training programs, then in 10 years we would have made a huge leap forward. So I think this is the single biggest challenge for sports in Nepal.
Yeah. I mean, coming back to my own sports, squash, right? Like squash came to Nepal in 80s, early 80s. So we started playing squash from mid 80s onwards. So mid 80s we only play squash. 90s we only play squash. 2000 we play squash, right? And then we are already reaching age of like 45, 46, 47. I say, I mean, we can't compete internationally. To be able to play at international level, we have to be at least 24, 25 years old. I mean, at 45, we can't be international level players. And we don't have new players. So let's start grooming new players. So what we did was in around 2005, 2006, we tried to advertise squash, but then squash being not so glamorous as tennis, nobody wanted to come and play squash. So we went to visit local schools around local schools, and the local schools, we said, this is winter vacation now, so you guys come over. We talked to the principals and then said that, can you give us 10 kids, can give us 15 kids, 20 kids. So that way we went to 5-6 schools and we brought in about 50 kids, like boys and girls in 10-year, 12-year girls. So we gave them free racket, free shoes, everything. We trained them free. So 2 months of holiday, some of them started picking up the game pretty well. So out of 40, 50 kids, 10, 15 continued playing, right? I mean, and then 25, 30, they never came back to play again. So these kids started, so we used to give them, tiffin, some kind of food allowance, and then free shoes, free rackets, everything. Then next year we did same thing. So every year we started building our young players team from 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50. And then by 2015, 16, these players became like 15-year-old, 16-year-old players, and then they came up to national level. So these are the players who became national champions, and so who started competing internationally in South Asian Games, in Asian Games now. Unfortunately, Nepal number 1, number 2, number 3, they need to work because they don't come from economically good families. Because we gave them squash rackets, shoes, everything. So that's how they could afford to play squash. Right? We didn't charge any squash fee, no nothing, free coaching, everything. We give them allowance. But after they hit like the age of 21, 22, now they need to work. They need to support their family, their old parents. But now, some have gone to Korea, some have gone to Portugal, some have gone to Dubai police, some are, So that's a sad story of squash. So I don't know how long we can keep on sustaining this game in this manner.
So, like you said, I think there's a requirement, a lot of them. There's probably 100 footballers, let's say 1,000 footballers. Not all of them are going to be national stars. But for them to keep practicing at the younger age, they also need some financial support.
Yes.
So if you're from the department, you at least have a salary and you're somehow being able to manage all your other expenses. I also heard from a few players that they did not want to work in Nepal because they're still popular enough that somebody would recognize them. So rather they choose to go to Australia, although they would actually want to try a few more years and maybe represent the national team. So I think the other requirement for athletes is that they should be able to have a side job as well. As we see in the West, it might be throwing newspapers at the goes on a cycle, but there's a way to make means during that time. But in Nepal, we don't have similar opportunities. So that's why a lot of talent we are losing out in the middle.
That's true. So I think we need to have, the government rather needs to have a very holistic review of the entire sporting activities in the country and do something about it. And because sports is something which instills discipline in young people, number one. Number two, is part of like a profession for a lot of people also. Like, and any other country, like a chunk of population are engaged in sporting activities, football, volleyball, cricket, baseball, whatever activities, right? Hundreds of thousands of people are engaged, and they have their livelihood on it, and then they make money out of it, and then people who support them, their managers, their sports arenas where they play. I mean, the sports arenas, they have commercial activities going on. So I think that way, this field has to be given a big priority by the government, and government should give due importance, and then formulate policy in such a way that it becomes a win-win situation for the country, for the nation, for the associations, and for the players, right? So then only I think the sporting activity will have a future in this country.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
People involved in sports as a player, as a coach, as sponsoring institutions, all can make financial benefit out of this. So for that, I think government carries the pain. So they have to formulate the right kind of policy for developing sporting activities as a commercial activity. Because unless this is developed as a commercial activity, this will not survive. This has to be made sustainable. And making sustainable means there has to be a financial return, financial gain for all the parties involved. Like if I am a sponsoring organization, I would do it not only because I love sports, but because now I am also gaining something back. I'm getting something back financially. So in form of tax holidays, in form of tax break, in terms of reputation for my organization. So all these things I weigh and then say, okay, it makes sense for me to get engaged in this sporting activity, in this sporting activity. I can, from my profit, let me now try to invest at least 4 to 5% of my profit in this activity and 4 to 5% in this activity, in building sporting facility, in building, in sponsoring sporting activity, right? So, or even building a stadium, why not? The Mulpani Stadium, as you pointed out earlier, like if I'm given an opportunity, okay, I'll build Mulpani cricket ground, but then again, the revenue which is generated from running sporting activities in the ground, well, this percentage of revenue should be mine.
Right.
And for my investment in it, you have to give me this much of tax break in my business, number one. Number two, you have to allow me accelerated depreciation, all right? So when you allow me accelerated depreciation, then which means all my investments I can get in form of tax breaks within first 5 or 6 years, right? When the stadium is at its best stage. So which means I get my payback early, right? I don't have to wait 25, 30 years, 40 years to get my investment back. First 5, 6, 7 years, I get my investment back in form of tax break, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that way, if we can develop a whole sporting policy, tax policy by the government in that manner, with close coordination between the finance ministry, between the sports ministry, and totality, then definitely the country's sporting thing will really take off. So that goes not only in building stadium, but in other activities also. Like we have so much potential in adventure tourism, in the trail races, in the long marathons and triathlons, and then in mountain biking. We have so much potential there. And in all the sectors, there are so many eager sponsors who would really getting involved, provided they also get some kind of a financial benefit out of it. So it's all, I think it's all up to the government to make sure that it becomes a win-win situation for all the parties concerned, the sponsors, the athletes, and of course the associations.
I don't think that Nepal lacks sporting talent. What we lack is actually the structure and professionalization of sports. So as a kid, even I dreamt of making tennis my career. At the age of 14, I was Nepal #1 under 14. Went to India to play a tournament. Played with India #16 and lost 6-1, 6-love. So, that was probably my realization of, okay, this may not be my career. But I think the biggest challenge in making sports a career is definitely the financial part of it. As a young kid in your 14, 15, 16s, when you're trying to give so much of your time to sports, because it takes a lot of time. It probably takes 6 hours and 7 hours and 8 hours of training in a day. And if you're dedicating so much to it and there's no financial return, at some point of time you begin to give up. For me, it may not have been a financial cause. For me, it was more, I'm far from where I thought I was. It was that realization that made me realize that, okay, this is not going to be my soul and heart career. That's how I slowly got into other things. But I think the major challenge for any young sports enthusiast to think of making sports that career is the finance. Because, you might become Nepal #1, but then what? Is there room for further growth? How much can the country or the association pay me for my services? And it's also the whole perception of how a sports star is looked at in Nepal. When I speak to some of them, it's quite sad. We look at them as, he's the national hero, this sport, that sport. But internally, they're struggling even to, just live their basic lives. So I think the biggest challenge in the career perspective is definitely the finance. And if all the associations worked better and slowly there was remuneration for athletes right at the young age, then I think a lot of them would grow up to do a lot better.
And I'm sure from government level, they can't afford to give a big budget. And they have limited budget. So that way, it's impossible for the National Sports Council to allocate adequate budgets for different associations to, like a player can be excellent only if given opportunity to be playing with foreign counterparts, right? You and me, we can, let's say we are the best players in badminton or squash or tennis. And you and me, we play against each other. Sometimes I beat you, sometimes sometimes you beat me. That's it. But we don't know how good we are against foreign players. So for that, we need to have excellent sparring partners, right? And to get that kind of exposure for experience, I mean, we need adequate kind of budget, right, to go and participate in tournaments abroad, or for us to bring in players from abroad and then to play with these players out here. So for our football team to become excellent, we need to have our domestic tournaments and then to be able to play in foreign tournaments, even in India or Bangladesh or at Asian level. So if our football team can't get that kind of exposure, then there's no way our football team will, be able to perform in an outstanding manner. So that's the reason why we keep on losing to any international team that comes in. We lose. Any international country we go to play, we lose. Whether it's men's football, women's football. Look at Bangladesh. They're progressing so fast. The men, women, even Bhutan is progressing very rapidly in football because they have given so much time, so much budget, right? Government has given good priority for development of football in Bhutan, in Bangladesh, both the men and the women, they're performing in an excellent way. But Nepal, I mean, we are lagging behind. I think our football is not up to the same level that it used to be 20, 25 years back. We have slipped back further down, and our FIFA ranking has slipped down. So that way, I think it's the government and it's the finances, right? And government alone with their financial support can't do nothing. And so, as I said earlier, if government can incentivize private institutions to come forward and then spend in sporting activities and give them adequate kind of incentive, then I'm sure sports will then finally take off in Nepal also.
Right.
Yeah. No, private sector institutions like Adidas or even now we have this Kelme, right? They endorse and they sponsor because they are selling their merchandise, right? And so the more they sponsor, the more they are advertising their products. So whether it's their tracksuits or their shorts or shirts or even the shoes or socks, right? Or their playing equipment. So they make a commercial gain out of sponsoring players out here. And out here, like what we do as sports person is like, if a well-known sports personality is wearing Adidas, then we would love to own Adidas while playing. Like if I'm a footballer and my favorite player, let's say Ronaldo, is wearing Adidas, then I'll try to go for Adidas, right?
Right.
So now ASICS is coming up very fast, and then as a squash player, over last 7-8 years, I've been buying only ASICS because every racket player is wearing ASICS. All right. So naturally ASICS will keep on sponsoring good players,
right?
Because their brand is getting like advertised. Now, like me, I'm sure thousands, tens of thousands of players would love to own ASICS to play any racket sports, be it tennis or badminton or squash, right? So that's how private, companies like Adidas or ASICS or Reebok, how they keep on sponsoring because they have a commercial gain out of it. Yeah. So I guess. Kelme, now the Chinese company, they're spending a lot of money in Nepal because they know that there's a huge potential here. And Kelme products are cheaper compared to Adidas or Reebok, right? So that's why they are going out of their way and then spending quite a bit of money in advertising their products and sponsoring players out here, teams out here. So I think it's more or less for commercial return. Right.
So in the context of Nepal, I think it's more the national teams that are getting sponsored.
Yeah.
For example, Kelme with the football, T10 and the cricket. Like you said, there's commercial value there. You watch their games on TV. You buy merchandise for the national team. So there's commercial reasons. But one thing I'd like to point out is those are brands. But on the other hand, we've got companies like Bhatbhatini, who are really promoting some athletes, from a little kid playing cricket to national tennis player, Shivali Gurung, to Usha, who's the national volleyball captain. So I think apart from looking at it as a brand and pure commercial value, the other things that us from the private sector could do is probably find 2 or 3 of those rising stars in various sports and just give them that certain amount of additional financial support so that they are eating right, training right, wearing the right equipment, carrying the right rackets, etc. So I think that's a small push that the private sector can do.
That's part of CSR.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's part of CSR, and I think the total budget wouldn't be much, right? For an institution like Bhatbhatini to spend 100,000 rupees or even 500,000 rupees on someone like this Shivali Gurung reputation is, I think, gives them a big mileage. All right. I mean, for institution like Bhatbhatini, which has given like 40-50 crore rupees for building hospital, right? That for them to spend like $1 million rupees.
But I think it's a small start to get some of the stars.
But if we have more institutions like Bhatbhatini, if we have 100 institutions like Bhatbhatini,
that's what we
need. That's what we need. Then hundreds of players would benefit. So, but then again, I think it'll take some time. So unless the government comes up with the right kind of policies, it won't come up so fast. But
absolutely.
So let's keep our fingers crossed again. Hope that our government comes up with the right kind of policies, right? So that will kind of incentivize business houses to sponsor sporting activities and athletes and sports persons. And then I think that way, then Nepal would be again a powerful force in the sporting arena.
Definitely.
I mean, we are not a small country, as I said earlier. I mean, 30 million is a huge chunk of population. Like small country like Andorra, they play in European League, and then Iceland qualifies for World Cup. And
Norway,
then,
under a million population.
Yeah, they're small countries. So we are a big country. So let's not hide behind the shield that we are poor, we are landlocked, blah, 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 always.
True.
Yeah.